Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to our special city council meeting. It's Tuesday, August 29th, 2023, Trade and Transit third floor. Please rise for the invocation by Councilman Randy Allison, followed by the flag salute.
Heavenly Father, thank you tonight that we can gather in freedom to talk and discuss and exercise our civil rights tonight. I'm thankful, Lord, that we have freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion. We have the right to assembly. Lord, all these things and more we don't take for granted. They're precious things that we have, that were passed down from wise people along the way, long before us, and those that helped found this country. And Father, tonight we just want to ask you to give us wisdom, guidance. Let each one of us work to the best of our ability. Those standing up here and those sitting out in the audience, help us to have a fruitful discussion. And we ask for your blessing on it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we'll move into item 3, limited courtesy of the floor. There's been a number of requests. The only full item on our agenda is a discussion item. Everybody, I think, is aware of what we're discussing. It's certainly a topic of interest amongst the public, as we see tonight with everybody here. We've had, I believe, 7 or 8. I have them all listed. I just don't have all them. I just didn't do the quick math here. For limited courtesy of the floor, the group of them have asked to go in a particular order. So I'm going to call them in that order that they requested. First, for limited courtesy of the floor, is Bill Logue. You can come to the podium, name and address, and each member of the public under limited courtesy of the floor will have 3 minutes. I'm going to do this here. All right. Okay. Mr. Logue, welcome, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Welcome you all here tonight. And my name is Bill Logue, and I've been restoring historical buildings in Lycoming County for 60 years and was very fortunate to work with some great teachers. Every exterior project we did invariably would spur interest in the neighbors to fix up their properties. I feel you are setting an opposite example by not maintaining City Hall, and our housing reflects that attitude. I've been talking to people about this issue and circulating petitions. I've collected hundreds of signatures. There are a huge number of people in Williamsport who believe we should restore City Hall as a central location for city government. There's no better use for this building than government offices and council chambers. Our City Hall is a source of civic pride. It's perfectly located in the heart of our downtown. The building is an architectural gem and will stand forever if it is maintained. It's 40,000 square feet. There are 32 parking spaces. It's clad in limestone with hand-carved gargoyles. The materials and craftsmanship could never be duplicated. You can't get old growth lumber anymore than the craftsmanship that created this monument to our local government. It's an architectural masterpiece that belongs to the citizens of Williamsport. Shame on anyone who thinks of selling or basically giving it away. What is the appraised value of City Hall? We don't even know. An appraiser was paid for with taxpayer money, but we have been denied the outcome. We have been summarily dismissed when we asked for the value, the appraisal price of City Hall. Do any of you council members know this number? What's the big secret? We, the citizens of Williamsport, pool our money in the form of taxes and leave it to you, the elected, to spend our money wisely, to be a steward of our parks, our infrastructure, and our buildings. So many other communities have used historic preservation as an economic development tool, much to their success. Towns like Wellsboro, Milford, Bloomsburg, Jim Thorpe, New Hope, Bethlehem have revitalized their downtowns and now are listed on the 10 of the best small towns in Pennsylvania. They are reaping the economic benefits of investing in their architectural assets. In conclusion, I implore you to rethink even considering selling Hall. Let's work together to make our city a destination as a lumber heritage town that cares, plans, and follows through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Logue. Next on limited courtesy of floor is Ms. Mary Raczynski. And again, the podium is yours. You have 3 minutes, and thank you for being here.
Okay. My name is Mary Raczynski. I live at Arch Street in Newbury, Williamsport, 411. I just had some notes about the circumstances surrounding the condemnation and relocation and temporary relocation of City Hall. My understanding is that at some point during the rainstorms in July of 2021, water entered City Hall, which has happened in the past. Being that it was hot and humid, there was concern that because of that water, there would be mold growth. And an environmental testing and assessment company was contacted and took numerous samples throughout the building. My understanding is that it was said that less than 25% of City Hall was affected by this water event. And without having the full results and recommendations of the thorough environmental testing, certain rooms and spaces on the second and third floor of the building were posted as being condemned on August the 4th. The final assessment was not provided to the city until September the 8th, which was well after that date. Maybe it was just a matter of taking the safe course, I imagine, but still there was a discrepancy in what information was available and what was decided on. I have not seen the report, but I understand, we have people in the audience that have seen this environmental report. And again, my understanding is that the final report shows that other than some localized areas of the building with slightly higher relative humidity levels, there was essentially nothing wrong with the air quality, and that all mold levels were within normal range. I also have been led to understand that the report has not been made public. I have not seen this report. I'm basing it on information that was provided to me. And it's just, I question whether it was now necessary to keep people out of City Hall. Is it still the same situation? And that maybe things should be reconsidered as more information becomes available. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on limited courtesy of floor, Miss Gloria Mealy, 407 West 4th Street, Williamsport. Welcome, and the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, members of the council, mayor. Thank you. I'm Gloria Mealy from the Herdick House. We also own some other properties on the 4th Street. But I'm concerned about the fate of our beautiful Richardson Romanesque City Hall. City Council formed an ad hoc committee in 2020 to decide the fate of City Hall. The committee identified 2 options. One, stay in City Hall at a cost of $5,498,000 that would be funded by grants and loans. The other one was to move to Trading Transit 1 and pursue a regional safety building at a cost of $18 million. $5 million, $18 million, also funded by grants and loans. On February 25th, 2011, the ad hoc committee, by a vote of 6-0, recommended option 1, staying in City Hall. The ad hoc committee recommended staying in City Hall and issuing a request for proposal for a design build contract. As far as I know, no RFP was ever issued. Instead, in July of 2021, a gutter leaked in City Hall was condemned on 8/4/21. I've had 2 gutter leaks in my house and never thought of getting my house condemned. After the condemnation, the city government moved out of City Hall at an estimated cost of $150,000 for the move and $50,000 for the modifications. And now City Hall is for sale. City Hall doesn't belong to the mayor or city council. City Hall belongs to the citizens of Williamsport. It belongs to the public and it shouldn't be sold without public input. I, for one, would like city government to return to City Hall. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Next on limited courtesy of floor, Mr. Glenn Schaefer. Did I get that right? If I butchered your name, my apologies. I think I got that
I've been
right.
called lots worse.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
The podium is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Oh. Thank you, folks. My name is Glenn Schaefer. The estimated cost to make all necessary repairs and accessibility renovations to City Hall have ranged from $2 million in 2019 and up to $20 million as of 2023. This is a huge difference. A number of professionals, including previous city engineer, codes administrator, local architect, construction management firm, all of who examined City Hall, put the construction estimates in the range of $4 to $6 million. In their recommendation to stay in City Hall, the city's own ad hoc committee estimated the cost at $5.5 million. After an 8 to 9 month in-depth study covering the options of staying in City Hall, buying another building, constructing a new building, or renting space, the ad hoc committee recommended staying in City Hall as the most cost-effective option in the long term. The current city administrators seem to have no plan other than to stay in space rented in 3 buildings managed and soon to be owned by the River Valley Transit Authority. This temporary measure is now going on 2 years. The Bureau of Police are in a 4th building containing a deed restriction which precludes them from occupying the space. How much is it going to cost to buy another building, construct a new building, or keep renting space in buildings not owned by the city? It seems that no one knows at this point. The citizens of Williamsport deserve to know the short and long-term cost of all possible options before any specific option is chosen, and definitely before its historic City Hall of more than 40 years is sold for a fraction of its worth. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Next on limited courtesy of floor, Miss Lisa Fink, 333 Mifflin Place in Williamsport. Welcome. The floor is yours and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Lisa Fink. My husband and I own 2 businesses and 4 properties here in town. We were both born here in Williamsport and have deep appreciation for its history. We like living in a small town where people are nicer. I talked with several of you council members this past week. I thank you for spending time with me. I found all of you to be articulate and level-headed. I also spoke with the mayor, and I thank you for your time too. I sense a frustration amongst all of you and a fatigue from batting this ball around for so long. I mean, you've been examining this conundrum for years. You even did that extensive ad hoc committee investigation we keep talking about and unanimously decided you should stay in City Hall. In that report, it was stated the 2021 budget, as well as CDBG money and a number of outside funding streams, such as federal and state grants, made staying in City Hall the best option. But no plans were laid and nothing got done. How frustrating. Then a gutter leaked. which was no surprise. There had been talk about replacing the internal gutter system for years. Plans were made, nothing was done. How frustrating. On top of that, you were sued for not being ADA compliant when you know plans were drawn up years ago to solve the problem, but nothing was done. Pretty frustrating. After the leak, people working the building started complaining of headaches and other maladies that were then linked to the water damage. It was decided to temporarily move people out of City Hall. Again, this was to be temporary. City Hall was condemned on August 4th. 1 month later, the mold study, which was never publicly released, came back and showed that the air quality within the building was fine. So why was it condemned? Why didn't everyone return to City Hall at that juncture? Following this, there is the pipe bursting in December of 2021, probably because the heat wasn't turned high enough due to the building being vacant, or perhaps it wasn't turned on at all. I sense your frustration. That brings us to February of 2022. You, the council, meet and discuss repairing City Hall. Now, this is after all that damage has been done. At that time, the estimate was $6 to $20 million. This is not an estimate that anyone can plan around. You, the council, asked for a firmer figure. Joe Girardi proposed that he and John Sander would have a firmer figure for council in 2 months. That report never materialized. But it must be noted that at the time of this meeting, Joe Girardi felt that all the repairs and bringing the building up to ADA compliance was closest to the $6 million mark. But it was never given to you in writing or presented to council. How frustrating. I sense you're ready to wash your hands of the whole thing. Just sell the building. And who can blame you? But what happens next? The mayor has alluded to buying another historic building in town and restoring it or building new. At what cost? Again, you have no solid plan, no figures on which to make an informed decision. Will it be more than 6 million? More than the expense of fixing City Hall? We don't know. So I'm asking you not to shut the door on City Hall. If you sell it, there is no turning back. How can you do that in good conscience when you have no idea where you're going or at what cost? Thank you for your time.
Next for limited courtesy of floor, Beverly, is it Desir? I'm gonna mispronounce your name. I'm so sorry. Oh. Nice to see you. The podium is yours. 3
Thank
minutes.
you. So I just have a collection of letters to the editor, to the Sun Gazettes, beginning in July 2019. So of course, I'm not going to read them in entirety, but just have a few little excerpts. So this person quotes from then Mayor Campana. City Hall has been neglected for decades, Campana said, acknowledging part of these decades occurred during his time in office and saying he never received cooperation needed to get projects before council. Leaving is not an option, he said. It is cost prohibitive and we need to do upgrades. We have the money. So then August 2019, the shape of City Hall. Why did City Hall and the mayor let that building go to wreck and ruin? Don't they realize any building needs maintenance? So you can hear that some of the citizens are frustrated. February 2021, finally, a decision about City Hall. Now it's time to make it accessible. We have a recommendation and it sounds like a solid plan. After much discussion and study, the recommendation from Joseph Girardi, the City Codes Administrator, to City Council's ad hoc committee for City Hall is to stay put. We appreciate the recommendation to make a historic building downtown continue to function as the seat of government, and we also appreciate that the committee did due diligence in exploring all options. That said, the committee will take the recommendation to City Council for a final decision. On August 2021, somebody wrote, kicking the can has worsened City Hall. City officials have long known that the aging building has problems. In 2017, then Mayor Gabriel Campana advocated a $500,000 investment to deal with the leaky roof, unsecured doors, and handicapped accessibility issues. Nothing happened until 2018, when City Council's Finance Committee put the brakes on a proposal to spend $450,000 to start working on a list of $5 million worth of needed repairs. That list included repairing the roof, improving climate control, fire suppression and security, and making the building fully handicap accessible. But instead of finding a way to fix the roof, more studies were ordered and the can was kicked down the road, and the building has only gotten worse. Now it is clear that a solid roof is needed to protect the rest of the building before more money is spent on other maintenance projects, including rehabilitating the recent water damaged sections of City Hall, and how long that will take is unclear. In the meantime, look for city officials at the Trade and Transit Building. That's where offices are being relocated temporarily, we're told. Cannot help but wonder, will they ever return to City Hall? And why would they want to when the city owns those shiny new transit buildings along West Third Street?
Thank
So-
you.
My 3 minutes are up.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Well, please respect and repair City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up for limited courtesy to the floor is Bruce Huffman, 1000 Cherry Street, Williamsport. Floor is yours, Mr. Huffman.
Good
Welcome.
evening, Mr. President, Vice President, councilors, members of the public, members of the administration. Thank you all for being here. A public hearing is an important way in which citizens and taxpayers can provide input regarding decisions that directly affect them. Public hearings are required when changes are made to the city zoning map or when a city street is to be vacated. A public hearing is required when a new authority is to be proposed for the city. But I cannot recall ever seeing an ad or article in the last 4 years requesting the public's input regarding the future of City Hall. Tonight, a number of us have given you that input. City Hall is one of, if not the most architecturally stunning and monumentally impressive buildings in all of Williamsport. It is a 132-year-old citywide landmark, cultural and historical asset, and community treasure to not only Williamsport, but the entire county. As I have mentioned previously at previous city council meetings, a Pennsylvania law commonly known as the Donated and Dedicated Property Act, or DDPA, states that all lands, buildings, and properties that have been donated to the public use or dedicated to the public use must continue to be used for the purposes for which they were originally donated or dedicated. If the city feels that the City Hall is dedicated use is no longer possible or practicable, then it has a duty to petition the Orphans Court for relief under the DDPA. This has not happened. To even entertain the idea of selling City Hall, a public building that was dedicated to serve the citizens of Williamsport in 1979, prior to following the DDA process, is a misguided at best attempt and a complete violation of the law at the worst. Though the city learned of the DDPA requirement on June 22nd, 2023, it chose to ignore it. Instead, it went ahead with placing a public notice ad requesting purchase proposal bids for City Hall. This is in direct defiance of the DDPA and is a willful alienation of the citizens for whom City Hall has been held in trust. The mayor stated in a meeting that several of us attended on August 4th that if the city has to follow the DDPA, it will. We have asked for a written opinion as to why the city feels that the DDPA does not apply and have received only silence. I have spoken to 4 different attorneys and 2 different additional officials at the Pennsylvania Local Government and Historical Commission level. All of them seem to feel that the DDPA applies to Williamsport. We urge you, the City Council, to reject any and all bid proposals to dispose of City Hall on the basis that the city administration has not followed through with a lawful process spelled out in the Donated and Dedicated Property Acts, and therefore does not have the legal authority to sell City Hall. In addition, we urge the administration to immediately seek grant opportunities and funding streams to make the required and necessary repairs and renovations to City Hall. Upon full restoration and renovation, city government functions and offices must be returned to their rightful home at City Hall, 245 West 4th Street.
Thank you, Mr. Huffman. Last limited courtesy floor that we have, Mr. Mark Winkelman, 1307 Park Avenue, Williamsport. Mr. Winkelman, welcome, sir. The podium is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Well, my name is Mark Winkelman, and together with my wife, Suzanne, we own and have been renovating the Pajama Factory, and I have to take a breath here, for the past 16 years. I'm an architect, and to state the obvious, I love old buildings. But I'm not here to save the City Hall building. It's not going anywhere. I'm here to promote a kind of a bold vision for Williamsport. I've looked at the floor plans prepared by Tony Visco's office and have heard some of the complaints about the building. The roof leaks, the ADA provisions are lacking, the heating and AC systems are awful. There are offices that don't have windows and other offices that have windows that look out onto noisy AC units. I mean, who would want to work there? It's a mess. And on top of that, it's way too big for just city administration functions. However, the modern restoration and adaptive reuse of the 1891 Federal Post Office could be such a positive civic, symbol of civic pride and help lead the rebirth of historic Williamsport. The many historic buildings and homes in Williamsport gave me such a positive impression when I first visited here. This historic architecture is such an asset that I believe can be promoted to help the city recover its population and tax base. City Hall could be a leading promotional example of that idea. There are challenges. As I mentioned, the existing building is much too large for just the city administration. Other uses would need to be incorporated into the 40,000 square feet for a full adaptive reuse and restoration effort to really make sense. But this could be an opportunity to pull as many as possible of the city's services and departments all under one roof, and then maybe add some small, medium, and large meeting rooms for the nonprofit world. Really make it a one-stop shopping spot for the public in a new, and I want to call it the City Services Center. I've heard that the administration is planning on building a new city hall from scratch. I guess there's some other ideas floating around, but this will most certainly cost more than the 4 to 6 million. And I'm saying that's 4 to 6 million for a total gut rehab of the existing building. It's a magnificent property, at least on the outside, already owned by the city. And note that a sell, lease, and buyback structure could be utilized with the developer to allow historic tax credits to be captured. These tax credits, unavailable for new construction, are worth about, 20% of the ultimate design and rehab construction costs. So there's some ways to work this in a deal. As I said, I'm here to promote a bold vision, the vision of City Hall becoming a proud symbol of historic Williamsport while looking forward to a bold modern interior. The choice of renovation versus all new construction is not an easy one, and I only hope the options are fully thought through before a sale eliminates the possibility of the renovation option. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that wraps up limited courtesy of floor. Thank you all for your comments. They're welcome and appreciated. Item 4, discussion and review of bids for City Hall. So this is a discussion item only for the public's clarification for ours. We're not voting on anything tonight. We've got 3 bids in front of us for the potential sale of City Hall. And that's what we're really looking at tonight. For clarifications purposes as well. So this was a response for proposals. or request for proposals, excuse me, we are obligated to accept, should we decide to sell the building, the proposal for the highest responsive bidder. Okay. So we really don't have flexibility as far as choosing one option or the other. It has to go to the highest responsive bidder. So just clarification for the public and for council. Ms. Chofi, I would invite you up. If you would be so kind, just when we started this process earlier this year, part of what we talked about was what's the market for historic properties look like? And I know there was some work you did initially before we formally did the RFP process. So if you'd be so kind, just maybe fill the public in a little bit on some of the background work you did, the bid process, and then we can get an overview of the bids, the highest responsive bid being J-Baz Realty. And we can ask any kind of clarification questions on the highest responsive bid, if you'll be so kind.
Sure. So I'm Tiffany
Thank you.
Chofi with Fish Commercial Group. We were hired the beginning of this year at a public meeting that approved the sale, marketing and sale of City Hall. We have been on the market as to date for 201 days. We had our first showing on the property February 8th. We've had about a total of 10 showings with quite a bit of other random interest. We have February 17th, Fish Commercial Group issued a press release announcing the listing of City Hall. First proposal received by the Hyman Group on March 9th. We reviewed that with council and administration on March 14th. At that time, all parties had agreed to decline due to the issues with other local properties that group had owned. We received a proposal from J-Baz Realty on March 20th, reviewed by administration and council on March 24th. At that time, council had requested a walkthrough of the former YMCA property that J-Baz Realty is currently restoring. That was set up for April 5th. At that time, administration was present, Fish Commercial Group was present, J-Baz Realty was present, but no one from council showed up for that walkthrough. We then at that time went back and forth on the offer, and a lot of time passed where no decisions had been made. We had an executive session May 11th, and then on June 1st, Chris Kenyon mentioned doing the legal notice as formality. At that point, the legal notice ran from July 10th through July 20th, with the public bid opening on July 20th. From that, we received 3 proposals that are currently being discussed today, with the highest being from J-Baz Realty at $555,500. The second coming from Herbal Gifts at full ask price of $499,000, and the third from Tim Butters at $100,000.
Would you mind walking us through the highest responsive bidder, J-Baz Realty? The what their plans are, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So again, purchase price of $555,500 with a $20,000 deposit, 10 to 12 months for construction. Overall projected cost was $5.5 million. They did provide proof of funds from their bank for that amount. They wanted to keep the first floor approximately 1,000 square feet of public space for the general public to be able to use. And you know, they would probably speak better to this exactly, but just for general public use, displaying the overall historical gesture of the building and the city in general, with 25 to 31 and 2-bedroom apartments, higher scale apartments being renovated for the remainder of the building.
Okay, thank you very much. So in relation to the highest responsive bid, we have a little bit of a feel of what they're proposing to do, an offer price, et cetera. Are there any questions for members of council on the highest responsive proposal that we've received? Any kind of items of clarification on intent? Ms. Mealy?
Pardon me. Yeah, I think there are a number of questions to be asked there. Probably first and foremost, as Ms. Chofi mentioned, they're intending to leave the 1,000 square feet on the ground floor as sorry about that. If you're intending to leave the 1,000 square feet on the ground floor as public space, what does that mean? And I guess I'm just kind of trying to understand the offer a little better. And then, yeah, I think that would be the initial question. What is that intent? What will happen there?
So I know we have a couple representatives from JBAS here. Any ability to potentially provide some insight into what you're planning or initial thoughts are of the public space? If you would be so kind as to, so everybody can hear.
And if it is simply that you don't necessarily have any
Yeah,
specific
that-
plan yet, that's also fine to say. I'm just curious to understand the concept a little better.
John Basiliga with J Bass Realty.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's early on in the project, so as far as the area for public use, we're trying to keep that interaction with the public open and alive. And as we develop it more, it could be anything from like a coffee shop or a public area for events and stuff like that. But it's important to keep that. We understand the feelings about the building. We want to respect that as much as possible. But so early on, and conceptually, we haven't done the whole layout yet.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
That was what I suspected the answer might be, John, but just trying to get a feel. So it would be potentially a retail space, but also potentially a space that would be open to the public for
It
use
could
for
be
something.
event space, it could be anything like that, just
Got it.
early in the project.
Okay. And help me to understand a little bit. I think I can't speak to the other members of council, but I think all of us became aware just today that that we were required to take the high bidder on the project, which is not a bad thing. I feel like this I like this project. I like this proposal. That's I'm not complaining, but I guess help me to understand how this project works in tandem with the other space that we know that you're working on at the corner of 4th and Elmira.
Yeah, so the existing YMCA, and I want everybody to know, I got no tax credits. I got no grant money on that. I'm doing that 100% of my funds. And what we do, we've done a lot in Scranton is change old factory type buildings, old historical buildings, and make them back into landmarks. Same thing we're doing with the YMCA. I think it's 35 units. We're going to create a really nice rehab of that building with kind of our brand, what we do all the time, similar to what we would do at City Hall. Bring people, more foot traffic into the downtown.
Got it. I'm assuming the intention is for market rate housing, rental housing in both properties, right?
Yeah, it is.
No, okay.
Yes.
All right.
If anybody wants to look at anything I did up in Scranton, the old Steamtown Mall, we renovated, and probably a dozen properties as well, similar use.
Yeah, no, you have a pretty impressive folder of information here. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Ms.
That's everything
Mealy.
I have right now.
Any other questions?
I'll have, like I said, layouts and stuff as we move forward. Just kind of want to see what happens here before we start spending major money on it. So,
Certainly. Appreciate it.
all right, thank you.
So we have a highest responsive bidder from the RFP process to potentially sell City Hall. I think the really other part of the conversation related to this discussion is what's the consensus of the group? I know amongst us individually, as we've talked about this, we all have different opinions of this. But is there a consensus on which way to go, one way or the other here?
Well, you said we can't vote on this.
No, it's not about voting. It's a discussion item. We can deliberate and discuss. There's nothing to vote on. But based on that deliberation, we can go one of two directions. We can agree to sell this and have that as a voting item on an upcoming council meeting. I think the first meeting in September would make sense, give us time to draft any final documentation, get that prepared and on the agenda. But if the consensus is to not sell this, we can deliberate about that as well. And I certainly understand, we've gotten some direct feedback from the public to offer some particular perspective on that. We have gone through this process to understand the market value for the property, which I think was a valuable process. And I would thank Fish. I know that this has been a little bit of a unique process.
Oh,
up
just
to
say
date.
frustrating.
Nonetheless, this was, I think, a good exercise regardless to go through it, right? But there's a couple of different directions we can go, but it's up to the consensus of the group of which way we're going to take this. So,
Well, I'll start, from the get-go, from day one, I never wanted to see us sell City Hall. I think everybody has known my feelings of that. It is every time you walked into that building when I was elected to council, it just gives you that feeling of importance of what we're sitting in. And, I fought to get these chairs that are in City Hall, that were in City Hall, to at least bring some memory here. And thank you, Scott Livermore. I just, I look at that building and I look at what some other cities use for City Hall. And we are just, should be proud of what we have, what was given to us how many years ago. I mean, $100,000 was dedicated for that building. And, we are absolutely paying nothing other than what we haven't done is maintain that building. And yes, there were, it's our bad that it never came to fruition. Right now, and I know the mayor knows I'm upset about the fact that nobody knows where City Hall is downtown. Nobody knows where offices are. Everybody needs to find where everything is. And I was upset when I saw RVTA banners out in front instead of saying that City Hall offices are here. So people can't even find offices. And I have found that very frustrating. So that is my opinion. I've never wanted to see this being sold.
I mean, I know there's other people that have differing opinions on this, and I'll be the first to admit, I mean, while I may lean with Mrs. Katz here, there's arguments on both sides of this. I mean, we went through this process 2 years ago. Both options were costly. I'm not going to deny that. After the fact, we had an ADA consultant come in as a part of the consent decree and not only look at City Hall, but Trade and Transit 1 and 2, the Public Works building. And based on that report, I believe there's more there than what our initial team in the city believed there was to get that ADA accessible, right? So, I mean, there certainly are arguments on both sides of this. And I think good, valid arguments one way or the other. So, but that's 1 of 7 or two of 7, I guess.
Well,
So
I'm not prepared to
okay.
engage in this particular conversation for two things. We received significant information just this evening that weighs heavily upon this. And in that opinion, so other than that, the opinion of that solicitor was not to do what we're doing right now. So
I talked to the solicitor before the meeting and they said, like, having the conversation about what way you want to go. Do you want to sell it or do you want to stay? It was perfectly fine. So I understand that, Randy. I understand.
Could I just,
Sure.
Again, just for clarification, tonight, we were to present the bids, which we did, and we have to either pick one or reject all. That's what we have to do
but not
tonight.
tonight.
No, that's what we have to do tonight.
We don't. We do not.
Norm, would you like to weigh in here? Well, that's your job, so weigh in, please. I am being told by McCormick Law Firm that we have the purpose of this meeting was to open the bids, discuss the bids, figure out which one was the most responsive, highest bidder, and either pick one or reject all. Those are our options tonight.
So, John,
And I understand and completely respect everyone that's here tonight. But unfortunately, the meeting tonight is to either pick a bid or reject all of them. So I mean, that's legally what we have to do.
So John, I talked to the same person that you talked to.
I'm asking for some clarification from Norm.
Okay.
Obviously, I haven't talked to either Chris Kenyon or Austin White today. Excuse me. However, I was under the impression that the whole purpose of tonight was to review the bids. And then at a future meeting, make the determination whether or not to award the bid. But tonight was to review it and also to accept public input, which obviously we've had. If, you know, if you want to accept the bid, you know, I think, you know, somebody would have to make a resolution. The other problem though is, since it's not on the agenda, I don't know if that would be fair to the public, since they're really expecting that sometime in probably the first meeting in September, that a formal decision would be made to either accept or reject the bids. I don't know if either Chris or Austin were aware of what was going to, the role of tonight's meeting until they spoke with Mr. Yoder. So.
Well, we
But-
seem to be
but
at
actually,
a bit of an impasse then here, because we're receiving two different
unfortunately-
opinions from both of our solicitors are giving us two different legal opinions here. So I don't know
Unfortunately,
if there's anybody else that can, I mean,
Chris has been the one handling this, this project. He's the one that's been working with Fish Real Estate and the administration. So beyond that, I have not been involved. My role would have been to advise city council. And when I saw what the agenda was, it said, discuss and review the bids. And that's an appropriate thing to do at a special meeting. If there was an intent to accept a bid, then it would be, there'd be an additional line item to accept or award the bid. And of the three bids, it's supposed to be the highest conforming bid. Without, I have not seen the bids other than some short, statements about them as to do all three comply. Is the highest bidder at $555 a compliant bid? I haven't seen the bid itself to be able to compare it to the request for proposals.
All three bids are responsive. So
Okay,
just
if
for
they're
clarification
responsive-
of everybody, all three bids are responsive
Okay.
per the solicitor, per Chris Kenyon. We have to accept the highest responsive bidder,
Yeah.
which, as I had mentioned before we reviewed the bids, was J Baz Realty. Right? So that is the case.
So,
Ms. Mealy.
so I think, John, for the sake of clarification, what effectively happened at some point today was that this meeting was rendered somewhat null and void. But a little too late for it to actually be, but you see what I'm saying? We thought that we were speaking to the various bidders and learning more about the bids that have been submitted, but in fact, really, we have just one choice per Mr. Kenyon. I would personally prefer to perhaps see us get a second opinion on that, if that's a possibility. I have a not to sow seeds of discord here, but the whole process I think has been a little confusing for me, perhaps. First, that we received offers, but then initiated an actual RFP process where people were, offers that in some cases we rejected But then also there was an RFP process secondarily where we then had an opening of bids. The two things seem somewhat at odds with one another, to receive offers initially and then to also do an RFP process. And then I was under the impression, and I think all the members of council were under the impression when we initiated the RFP process, that the evaluation of the responses would be predicated both on merit and on the financial offer. And it's not that I'm objecting it seems as though the process has changed in the course of the process in a way that I find a little bit confusing, and I'm not quite certain how it impacts our ability to make a decision here. And that's not me saying that we can't make a decision here, but as Randy said, I feel like I might need a bit more time to digest
And
it.
that's perfectly fine. Again, I just am simply trying to see like, hey, I mean,
Right.
is there a consensus one way or the other? If people need more time to digest what the public said, that's perfectly valid, right? Absolutely.
Well,
And again, I'll just clarify. I specifically told Chris Kenyon that the intention was to discuss if there is a consensus on which way to go with this. And he said, yes, that is perfectly fine to do as a part of discussion and reviewing the bids. So John, just to clarify, and I can send that to you via text. I have a screenshot of that. Just so you're aware, we're not doing anything wrong here, okay? If that is the consensus of council to digest what was told to us, that's perfectly acceptable and reasonable, and I understand that. Ms. Mealy, sorry.
That's actually not even entirely what I'm saying. That's a second thing to digest. I think the level of interest from the public in this item is something else that needs to be taken into account, but that's actually not even what I'm proposing. I'm just saying I need to further understand the logistical elements of this process at this point before I know how I feel about it. I don't think I've made any secret of this, and I think in fact I've been perhaps too blunt at times about my feelings about the sale of City Hall, which is to say that I would personally and would always favor keeping city administration in a historic structure. I feel as though that is best suited to the historic nature of our community. I feel as though it is the best way to encourage care and maintenance, to the point of Mr. Logue, for those who own and invest in historic properties within the community. All of that said, I've been on city council for a really friggin' long time now, haven't we, Randy? A really long time. And in the entirety of my time on city council, I have seen very little interest from the administration in remaining in the building. And I do not have a lot of interest in continuing to attempt to get a response from an administration that is not interested in maintaining a historic structure. And I do not, Derek, this is not, it's not an attack on the administration. I'm just saying there's, I am a very passionate preservationist. I don't want to see us continue to let the building drift in the way that we have. And so that's the impasse that I am at personally. With no offense to all the lovely folks who came out tonight and spoke, I am still at that impasse. However, but I would like to better understand the specific ramifications of perhaps a change in solicitor advice midstream here to the process, to the bidding process. I think I've really said all I need to say.
Tonight and everything changed. When I walked in here, everything changed.
Yeah,
Mr. Viter, you have a comment.
All right, I'm getting out of the discussion because that's all I need to say, and I'll say it over and over again if you give me the chance. So what does everybody else have to add to this whole discussion?
Mr. Viter.
Ms. Fink, I believe you said it best when you said frustration. That's what we've all felt through all of this, but I would like to propose a course of action for the other members of council tonight and the administration going forward, so we don't sit here and deliberate endlessly about what solicitor's advice we're going to follow this evening. We have to accept the highest bid. That is something that we have come to the conclusion of, correct? So. Or reject all of
Reject
them.
all of them, that's correct.
But this is not a voting item
Correct.
on the agenda tonight. So my suggestion to other members of council and the administration, if you agree to it this evening, would be that the administration brings us a resolution at the next council meeting in September. And at that point, we then have the ability to vote yes or no on the final sale of that building. And in that time, we are able to deliberate amongst ourselves in committee meetings with the administration and so on, and get more feedback from the public if they so choose to give it. And at that point in time, we will have the voting item. So it just delays this process a little bit because we don't have that ability this evening.
You have to deliberate in public.
We do. We do. And that will be done at committee meetings prior to the next council meeting.
So we're talking 2 weeks.
Correct.
Which is realistically how this was trending anyway.
Right.
So. Mr. Pelisi.
So that would give us,
I would,
go ahead, Liz.
Hang on.
oh, I was just gonna say, I would also like to see us have a written opinion from a solicitor regarding the.
That's coming this week.
Okay, good. I'm just saying
Yep.
that is something that I think we should not only have, but we should
And-
be exceptionally public.
To address that question from the public, that letter was received. I spoke with the solicitor again today. They're drafting a response this week. You should get that, and we will get that as well to outline that opinion.
Thank you, Adam.
Yep, you're welcome. Combination of family and sickness kind of threw a wrench in Chris's schedule nonetheless. That was the background. Mr. Pelisi, you were.
Thank you. So what Mr. Biter is proposing would give us 2 weeks' time to gather some more information to make a better informed decision, to have more conversations, to make sure the public is better informed on what's going on. Is that correct? 2 weeks?
Yep.
Okay. And to Councilman Mackey's point, I can completely understand, John, how you'd be frustrated that we've spent the time and energy, and to that point, the time of the administration, which is taxpayer dollars at work, on going through this entire process, start to finish. Well, we haven't finished yet, but getting Fish Real Estate involved, getting an appraisal done, going through listing the property, entertaining bidders, going through it. Everybody has had an expense in this. However, this is it's a big decision. It really is. And as such, this isn't really something that I'm prepared to discuss right now. But I feel everyone here that has come out, that is obviously passionate about City Hall, one way or the other. It's you all have a right to know exactly where I stand too. And Mrs. Fink, I see you back there. She did call me. We had a good conversation, and I'll tell everyone here exactly what I told her. I don't want to leave City Hall. It is not something that I would like to see happen. I think it is an amazing building. I think it has a ton of potential. However, I also feel that it is my responsibility to make the best decision for all of the taxpayers that elected us to look out for their best interest. With that, the same thing that I said to Mrs. Fink, we would love to stay in City Hall. Maybe not. I can't speak for everyone, but I would. But to what end? And if that means that we have to raise taxes on our residents an extraordinary amount because there's no grant funding or anything available for it, again, to what end? Does that mean it's going to have to be $5 million of taxes now that we have to generate to restore City Hall? Or do we explore other options? So that being said, it is a very heavy decision that we all have to contemplate. And believe me, I don't think there's a single person up here sitting in front of everyone tonight that was looking forward to this meeting tonight, knowing that the gravity of this decision. But you all have a right to know exactly where I stand.
as everyone else up here has informed you all where they stand. So my official stance on the sale of City Hall is that I don't necessarily want to see it sold. I would love to see city government move back in there, but to what financial end? And if that means that we have to raise the taxes on our residents to an extraneous amount, that's going to place everyone in more economic hardship than they currently are, then it's my obligation to look for what's best for the taxpayers. And if that means that we entertain the sale of City Hall for somebody, a responsible bidder that's going to try and maintain the historic preservation aspects of it, okay. But yeah, given the light of additional information that we just received tonight, I'm personally not prepared to make that decision. But I do want to make sure that all of you sitting here tonight and everybody that is a resident of Williamsport and cares, like I said, you all have a right to know exactly where I stand. So I love our building, I love our City Hall, but I love our taxpayers the absolute most. And that's why I think we all got involved, right? To make sure, because we all love the city, and to see it grow and prosper. So whatever the decision is, I hope everyone here understands that at its core, the choice of it is me. I feel a personal responsibility to look out for each and every single one of our residents and their tax dollars to make them, to make the choice as far as what is going to be best served by their tax dollars. That's probably all I'm going to say tonight.
So it seems like the consensus is to kind of digest what we've got in front of us before the first meeting in September. And then decide at that meeting. And that's perfectly fine.
But is the consensus that what Mr. Biter suggested, consensus is to accept the highest bid and have the mayor draft the resolution so that we can vote on it in 2 weeks?
I think that's what Mr. Biter said, and I think that's what everybody else is saying
Right.
on, to be clear.
Okay, just so we're clear. Yeah. And again, I mean, the word may be out on the street that I hate history. I don't hate history. I hate history at no cost, at any cost. I mean, I listened to everything that people said here tonight, and I took notes, and I get it. Yes. Is it a historic building? Yes, it is. Was it a post office 50 years ago? Yes, it was. Our original City Hall is currently what I feel to be a really unique and great hotel. And I hesitate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Our original City Hall is now a hotel. There's also a barber shop there. There's a restaurant. There's a bar in the back of it. And the sun still comes up every morning. City Hall, our current City Hall, again, 40,000 square feet. I heard that number tonight. How much sense does it make for 25 people to occupy 40,000 square feet? That seems irrational to me. I really didn't hear anybody talk about the ADA compliance of City Hall. The reason that we moved out of City Hall was because it wasn't ADA compliant. This is the people's building, yes? So every person in the city of Williamsport should be able to access that building, all parts of that building. We left City Hall because it wasn't ADA compliant.
John, we left City Hall because we thought there was mold in it.
No, we left City Hall before there was mold, Liz. I was
All right,
sworn-
everybody, hang on,
Yeah.
hang on.
I'm sorry.
The floor is yours, Mr. Mackey, but just remember, let's be careful in deliberation, right? We have a consensus here, right?
I'm allowed to
Yeah,
let
you
everybody
are.
know how I feel.
You are.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. My point is this, my personal feeling, and I will echo Councilman Palizzi's sentiments, is that history at what cost? I will just end there.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Any other final comments relating to the discussion item? I think, again, we have a consensus of moving forward between now and the first meeting in September. Okay. Item 5 announcements. Our next meeting will be in 2 days, Thursday on the 31st of August, 7 PM right here. Labor Day, City Hall will be closed, September 4th. Upcoming meetings, Tuesday, September 5th, 12 PM Planning Commission. Tuesday, September 12th, 11:30 AM Public Safety, 1 PM Finance, 2:30 PM Public Works. Wednesday, September 13th, 9 AM ERC, 3:30 PM O&E Pension. Thursday, September 14th, the meeting that we are talking about with this next steps is our next city council meeting. Any final comments from members of council tonight?
Just to thank everybody for coming.
I would second that. Any comments from the administration? Derek, do you have any comments? Okay. Any final comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Winkleman, the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes, just to make sure everybody can hear you, that the public can hear you, and all, if you would, please. 3 minutes.
No, I
Thank
don't
you,
need,
Mr.
I don't need
Winkleman.
3 minutes. I, for one, would just like to see a comparison of the cost of a new place or moving versus staying. Because we're talking about city, taxpayer dollars. And unless there's a comparison, there's no basis for assuming there's more or less being spent. That's all. Thank you.
Adam.
Yeah, I didn't know if you said I saw him. Okay. Mr. Visco, welcome, sir. 3 minutes.
Tony Visco, architect here in Williamsport. I guess, some of the logic I'm trying to listen to, and of course, I'm a logical thinking person. And actually, from a technical standpoint on accessibility, certainly City Hall is handicap accessible for the most part. There are some small technical issues or minor technical issues that should be addressed because you're a municipality that should be compliant. The other thing is, even though you're saying the expense of what you have to spend on City Hall, but what I haven't heard is, where's the police department going to go? I mean, they have probably 16,000 plus square feet of evidence that's in that City Hall right now. Where's that move to if you sell it? I mean, there's going to be a cost. There's going to be a cost to actually house the rest of the police department. I have done a number of police departments throughout the municipalities, and they're usually 10 to 14 officers, where we create holding cells, we create garages where they can at least park some of their vehicles so they're not all in the weather. We also have secure garages where they bring the prisoners in, they can't escape. Those kind of things are just the typical things. And certainly that's lacking at Old City Hall for the police. And I sympathize with the chief and the assistant chief that they don't have those types of, I think, necessary safeguards for their own officers, let alone the public. But then you've got, where are you going to move to unless you're going to stay at Trade and Transit Center 1, 2, and up at River Valley? And no offense, I mean, I get along very well with Gary Nahr and certainly our code officer up there, but sometimes they're just not there and it's hard to get a hold of them. And even today, I recommended some older gentleman who didn't know where codes was, and I told him where they were. He says, well, I got to get a bus to go up there. And I said, well, maybe you should call first because they might not be there. So it's a kind of a tough conundrum here a little bit. And I realize the poor mayor is trying to balance all this and make it work as best possible. And I just think you need to think about the other side of the table here, because you're still going to have costs to do all this other work, whether you move, stay, or whatever. Okay. This is not a freebie. You're going to have to come up with some money to do whatever you want to do regardless. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fink, welcome, sir. The floor will be yours. You've got 3 minutes. And good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'll be brief. First of all, I agree with a lot of the statements that were made tonight with regards to the historic structure, the value to that property there. The one thing that was mentioned a lot was the fact that under city government care, that property is in sad shape. To me, that's a reason why you need to sell it to a private sector to be able to actually do what needs to be done. Because if you look at all of the public buildings that have been saved, they've been saved by the private sector who've invested in those properties. And to me, I hate to say it, under Liz, you mentioned you've been with city council for a decade or more. Randy, Bonnie.
We don't need to get into specifics.
No, we will. But you look at it, and unfortunately, under the watch here, it's in this condition. And as somebody who lives in this city, who finds value in these structures, who's in a building that has been saved by a private sector individual, who looks and walks through the city regularly, I have concerns about the long-term capabilities of the city based off of what you've demonstrated already and being able to maintain the structure. So if anything, and listening how this process has been going so far, you may want to step back before you make a final decision and really evaluate and have a plan in place. If you are going to sell it, I agree with Tony, you need to know what you're going to be doing if you are going somewhere. But at this point in time, I have concerns about the fact that the city would maintain ownership of it, given the conditions over the past several decades and not being able to maintain it.
Thank you, Mr. Fink. Mr. Huffman.
Thank you again. This is more for the benefit of the public because I know there are a lot of people here that probably didn't hear me speak the first time. So I just want to give you a little bit more background information on the way it happened with the City Hall building. So what's recorded in the City Council minute books and the Williamsport Sun Gazette is that on August 4th, 1977, the Williamsport Foundation granted the city $100,000 for the purchase of the former federal and post office building for use as a new city hall. This donation covered the full purchase price. At an official ceremony held in conjunction with the Williamsport City Council meeting of October 18th, 1979, the following resolution was passed with 7 yay votes. Resolution: dedication of new City Hall. Whereas the city of Williamsport has received its charter from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 1866, and whereas the city of Williamsport has continuously maintained its offices at 454 Pine Street since 1893, and whereas the city of Williamsport has purchased the former United States Post Office building at 245 West 4th Street and renovated the building for a new city hall. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of Williamsport as follows. In order to more efficiently serve the citizens of Williamsport and provide a city hall in which the citizens and employees of the city can be proud, the former United States Post Office building is hereby dedicated as the city hall of the city of Williamsport. Until another building is dedicated as City Hall, that building is City Hall.
Mrs. Wilson,
Hi.
welcome. 3
So
minutes.
yeah, Jennifer Olson, 810 Rural Avenue, but I'm also associated with the First Community Foundation Partnership of Pennsylvania. And it wasn't until I heard reference to our predecessor organization that I felt I should say something, just so my presence here, I don't want my presence here to be misconstrued in any way as related to any interest of FCFP. So I just thought that I needed to clarify that for those in the room who know me and know what I do. That being said, I agree with a lot of what's been said. I certainly agree with Jason Fink and his comments about preserving buildings. Our organization is in a building that we felt very strongly needed to stay part of the fabric of the downtown community. I love City Hall personally, for sure, and want to see whatever is best for that building to be thriving and a place that we can all be proud of, whatever that may be. And the only thing that I will add is that I do hope City Council takes into consideration where the city of Williamsport operations will be held. So if you're going to sell it, where are you going to go? I think those were some very good points. And I would add, on behalf of the nonprofit community, that there are nonprofits certainly who have been impacted by the operation of city government in this building and in the building next door. And so I do feel a need for them as well to be able to thrive and grow their own nonprofit organizations wherever that may be. This has there's going to be a trickle effect to whatever decision is made.
Thank you. Mr. Butters, welcome, sir.
Hello, I'm Tim Butters. I'm the owner. Me and my wife own the original City Hall, and it's now a boutique hotel. I'm not here to tell you, city council people, what to do. If you decide to keep the building, that's good. But if you do decide to sell it, you should look deep into the proposals and the best use for that building. And is it sustainable? That's all I'm asking. So just because the highest bidder doesn't always mean it's the best. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Evening. My
Good
name
evening.
is John Piper. And I've done some historical study of the city of Williamsport and the county. It seems to me that from what has been said, council is not really prepared to make a decision in 2 weeks. At least not prepared to make a decision that's informed and that would lead to finding someone else to work on the building. I think sometime you need to appoint a study committee to take into consideration many of the questions that have been asked. Tony Visco raises serious questions about the real cost of this project. And I think without knowing those costs, it's very difficult to make an informed decision. And so I would strongly recommend, whichever way the vote goes finally, that you establish a committee to reflect on many of these things. I do not believe you can do that in 2 weeks. I believe it will take some time, but better to make an informed decision down the road than to make a hasty decision and then afterwards find the real costs that are involved. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? I don't see any. Any comments from the news media? Yeah, we have. Not often, but yeah, we have.
John Bogie from PennLive.com. As members of council are very aware of this because I brought this up before. It is the opinion of legal counsel for the Pennsylvania news media people. The city council is basically violating the sunshine law on a regular basis. Your attorney disagrees. I'm talking about committee meetings. All I'm saying is if this subject is debated in committee meetings, I would hope it would not be done by Zoom, that you would meet in person, because that's where it should be done. Your committee meetings should be in person. The only way you're skirting the law now is by not taking votes at these meetings. But technically, you're violating the sunshine law by holding committee meetings by Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the news media? Okay. Take a motion for adjournment. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone from the public and everybody.